Senator Welch, I would be happy to speak with that family too, because there are many nonprofits that help with children with terminal illnesses, and I'm involved in some in Florida. So we would be happy to talk to you about that. As to health care, the government is shut down. It's my understanding, maybe you're not one of them, but because many Democrats want health care for illegal aliens, and that's what shut down the government.
Let me
That's
be clear.
one of the sticking points, and I don't know if you voted
All right, well,
for that or not.
this actually is important to all of us, and the lament I have.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm your independent political analyst, no spin, no tribalism, just facts, context, and thoughtful commentary. Today, we're diving into a tense and at times uncomfortable Senate exchange between Senator Peter Welch of Vermont and Attorney General Pam Bondi. This conversation covered everything from the government shutdown to health care, voting rights, and even a mysterious $50,000 question. Let's break it all down carefully, and I'll share my analysis along the way.
Senator Welch.
Thank you, Attorney General Bondi. I have noticed that at various times when one of my colleagues is pressing you, you come up with something in their background. So I'll be waiting for my turn, but you don't have to do it right now. So let me get to my questions. One of the things that you mentioned, and I agree with this, that it's really tough on the various federal workforce, including our law enforcement folks, who are not getting paid because of the shutdown. Mm-hmm. I agree with that. But I also think that wasn't the whole story. There is an issue here that's going to affect Americans, whether they voted for President Trump or voted for Vice President Harris, and that is the loss of health care, where on November 1st, everyone who is getting Affordable Care Act help to buy insurance is going to get the notice of premium increases. And I got a letter just today from a Vermont family, nuclear family of 5, husband and wife, 54 and 55, with 3 kids, one of whom has acute myeloid leukemia. And the apprehension that they have is that if we don't solve this problem, and November 1 is a urgent date, then their family premiums will triple. It'll be beyond their ability to pay. So I'm assuming that with respect to the threat to health care for families in your state of Florida, in my state of Vermont, you would share that concern and hope that we would resolve that.
Senator Welch, I would be happy to speak with that family too, because there are many nonprofits that help with children with terminal illnesses, and I'm involved in some in Florida. So we would be happy to talk to you about that. As to health care, the government is shut down. It's my understanding, maybe you're not one of them, but because many Democrats want health care for illegal aliens, and that's what shut down the government.
Let me be clear.
That's one of the sticking points, and I don't know if you voted for that or not.
This actually is important to all of us, and the lament I have is that if this health care goes away, this premium support, it is really going to hurt families in red states and blue states. And in Vermont, I mean, we voted Democratic, but we have a lot of good folks who voted for President Trump, and their health care is jeopardized. And there's a November 1 deadline that is coming up. And the reason I'm saying this is that I think it's important for us to try to work out together a resolution that's going to be beneficial to people you care about in Florida and voted for President Trump, and people I care about in Vermont who voted in some cases for Vice President Harris and some for President Trump. So it's not just Democrats not wanting to negotiate. And in fact, we do want to negotiate, and that's why I'd encourage the president to encourage my colleagues on the Republican side to sit down with us and try to see if we can make some progress. Another topic, with the respective voting rights in the letter that your voting rights chief sent out, we got one in Vermont, and it's a demand to get all the information on the voting file. And in that letter, in the announcement of that letter, the chief indicated an apprehension about the voting process being taken over by, quote, the left. Now, do you have any information with respect to Vermont about a takeover of the voting process by, quote, the left?
Senator, I'm not familiar with what you're referring to. We are currently involved in voter roll lawsuits in 6 states. Is that what you're referring to?
No, there's a letter that went out demanding that states, including Vermont, provide all the voting file information,
Right.
includes personal information. But when that letter was sent out,
That's perfectly legal.
but there was an assertion by the chief in this division that this was to deal with the fact that the voting process has been taken over by the left. So we got one of those letters in Vermont. And my question to you is, what do you mean by the left? And do you have any evidence that the so-called system has been overtaken by the left?
We must have fair and free elections.
No, I know that. But I'm asking for the specific basis.
And we will have fair and free elections in this country.
Okay, let me-
Senator, I'd be happy to talk to my chief. Who was it who said that?
It was your chief, which I assume you would know who that is. Here's the question here, okay? There is a point of view that is in dispute here about the fairness of elections. But you have the power as the as the Attorney General to use the authority of your office to make demands on states. And you did that with Vermont. That's within your right to do it. I'm not disputing your legal authority to do it.
Is Vermont disputing turning over the information to our office?
Vermont is, the Secretary of State is. And you can resolve that with her, but.
And we have every
you-
right to have that information,
yeah, here's where
Senator.
I'm going.
Why wouldn't they want to turn it
You're
over?
a prosecutor with the awesome authority to make the decision that you're going to start an investigation against the state or against an individual. And I know from your experience as a county prosecutor and as the Attorney General in Florida, you took seriously that obligation to have a factual basis before you'd proceed, right?
Senator, I take that role, I take my oath very seriously.
All right, so what I'm
And I
asking-
take fair and free elections in this
No,
country
we
very
all-
seriously.
we all
And that
do.
information, our office is entitled to have that information.
But
And we
the
are
question
involved
here-
in litigation on that, and I
Here's the
assume we'll be
question
involved
I
in
have.
litigation with
We have-
Vermont.
We have a Republican governor in Vermont. We had, our former Republican governor was was the treasurer for many years, and also the Secretary of State with election responsibility. What I'm asking is, do you or does your head of this voting section have any factual basis that you can point to that justifies your demand that Vermont turn over all this confidential voting rights information?
Well, it would remain confidential with my office, and you just said that you have a Republican governor, so it doesn't make sense what you just said. We've asked that of every state, Senator.
Right, and I'm asking about Vermont and what the factual basis is, but we can move on. You've mentioned that you can't discuss pending litigation, and I think the committee by and large accepted that answer. But I did notice that you spoke at great length about pending litigation, specifically with respect to the questions Senator Cruz asked you about the sentencing of the Kavanaugh defendant. That's pending, right?
He was sentenced to 8 years.
I understand that, but that's on appeal, right?
We will be appealing.
Right, so that makes it pending litigation. So you made an exception with respect to
No.
the Cruz questions.
Hold on. No,
But you
those
didn't
were
answer any of the
things-
questions that you said were pending at litigation from any of my colleagues.
Those were facts that came out at the sentencing hearing. You're welcome to see the transcript of the sentencing
No, I
hearing with all
understand
the
that.
gruesome details of what they threatened to do to Justice Kavanaugh and other justices.
I condemn what that person did.
That was the sentencing.
But the point here is that that's pending litigation. You indicated you're going to be appealing. It's your right to do that. And you would not, you use that justification to not answer many other questions.
Justification, you're an attorney, Senator.
Okay.
You realize that.
I do want to go back to Homan. There's a tape, right, with Mr. Homan? I mean, first of all, is there a tape that has audio and video of the transfer of the $50,000?
You would have to talk to Director Patel about that.
No, I'm talking to you.
I don't know the answer,
Yeah,
Senator.
you do know the answer to that.
Don't call me a liar.
I didn't call you a liar.
You just said I know the answer. I said I don't know the answer.
Well,
You have to talk to
okay, let
Director
me-
Patel. What I said is that
Let me put it
investigation was
another way.
closed.
If you don't know, why don't you know whether there was a tape and video?
Senator, I believe that was resolved prior to my confirmation as Attorney General.
Do you think that it is of public interest for the people to know what happened to the 50 grand that the FBI turned over to Homan?
Did you hear what I just said? That was resolved prior to my confirmation as Attorney General. That's why I said I would not know.
It's not resolved. There's $50,000. Homan has it, or somebody has it. Do you have no interest in knowing where it is?
You're not going to sit here and slander Tom Homan. The FBI and Deputy Director Blanche said there was nothing.
I'm not slamming Tom Homan. He got the 50
Tom
grand.
Homan is doing, how do you know that? Tom Homan is doing a great job, as our borders are, keeping your border state safe. You're a border state.
Thank
time
you,
is
Senator
up.
Welch.
Thank
We're
you.
going to
Madam President, could I have
not right
1
now.
minute
Not right now. And
on a
if you wait, we'll
point of
talk about
personal
it.
privilege?
Not right now. There,
The
Senator
witness
Tillis and many others have been waiting their
would-
turn.
I know,
so
but this
you
is
can
1
hold
minute,
until
and
the
it relates
end.
to testimony that she gave
No,
about me.
Senator Tillis, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
The exchange starts on a somewhat humorous note. Welch teases Bondi about her tendency to dig into senators' backgrounds during questioning. But humor fades quickly as he pivots to the real-world consequences of the government shutdown, especially for law enforcement and federal employees not being paid. From there, Welch highlights an even more urgent issue, healthcare affordability. He shares a heartfelt story about a Vermont family, a couple in their 50s with 3 kids, one battling leukemia, who are terrified of losing their healthcare due to rising premiums. This personal example was clearly designed to humanize the policy debate, grounding it in real people's struggles rather than political talking points. Attorney General Bondi's response was polite, but politically pointed. She expressed sympathy for the family, even offering to connect them with nonprofits, but then shifted the blame for the government shutdown to Democrats, accusing them of insisting on health care for undocumented immigrants. That line struck a political chord, reframing the discussion from a bipartisan health care crisis into a partisan debate over immigration. From a neutral perspective, this was a strategic pivot. Bondi turned a human story about healthcare costs into a broader culture war narrative, perhaps to rally her political base or redirect scrutiny away from the administration's shutdown strategy. Welch then changes topics, and things get even more tense. He challenges Bondi about a letter sent by her Voting Rights Division demanding that states, including Vermont, turn over complete voter file data. That letter reportedly included concerns about elections being taken over by the left. Welch presses her. What does that mean? What's the evidence? Bondi sidesteps, insisting her office is simply ensuring fair and free elections. From a legal standpoint, she's right, the federal government can request that data, but Welch's point was about motive and transparency. He wasn't questioning legality. He was questioning judgment and factual basis. As a neutral observer, this moment underscores how both sides often talk past each other, one focus on process, the other on perception. The exchange then turns to pending litigation. Welch accuses Bondi of inconsistency, refusing to answer questions under the excuse of pending litigation, yet discussing other active cases, such as the Kavanaugh sentencing appeal. Bondi defends herself, saying she only referenced facts already on the public record. This might sound technical, but reflect a larger pattern seen in many hearings, when legal officials use pending litigation as a shield to avoid politically sensitive topics. It's not illegal, but it does frustrate senators looking for accountability. The final moments are the most heated. Welch presses Bondi about a $50,000 payment allegedly tied to a man named Tom Homan. He asks if there's video evidence of the transaction. Bondi deflects, saying he should ask another official. When Welch insists she must know, Bondi fires back, "Don't call me a liar." It's a flashpoint that exposes how strained this hearing had become. Bondi defends Homan as a strong public servant. Welch insists the matter remains unresolved. Ultimately, the chair cuts Welch off, giving the floor to the next senator. So, what can we take away from this? Welch tried to emphasize bipartisanship and real-world impact, while Bondi leaned on legal authority and partisan framing. Both were articulate, but neither seemed to convince the other or the public on how to move forward. This exchange reflects today's political reality: sharp questioning, emotional appeals, and competing definitions of accountability. As always, the truth probably sits somewhere in between, and it's up to us as citizens to listen critically beyond the headlines. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. I'm your independent political analyst, and I'll see you in the next one.